Oh my goodness, I think I finally just figured out what the lisp issue was. And it was an old camera that I was using when I first started doing the channel. Anyways, watch this. This next video is long, but it is actually 3 segments that I have just put into one for you, and it's all about my trials with the deer and how I protected my garden from the deer. When you finish with the video, at the end of the video, I am actually going to tell you what I do now that works amazingly well. But we gotta watch this one because we learn a lot while we watch this. Hang on.
Hi. I wanted to talk to you guys today about deer and deer protection in your garden. It's something that the first year and a half that I lived here, I never knew that they could be so ruthless in a garden. And I planted a whole bunch of plants that somebody had given me, and I didn't even know what color blooms I was going to have, so I was anticipating every morning when I woke up looking to see what color daylilies I had and what color the other plants. I mean, I didn't even know. I don't even know what some of the plants' names are, but they have beautiful pink and blue and orange flowers on them. And one morning I heard something about 6:30, and I rolled over, and about 20-30 minutes later I wake up, and I go outside every morning. I'd go to the windows, and I'd look through the windows, and I'd see, you know, what color are they, what color are they? And I woke up, and I went out, and I looked through the window, and every single blossom was gone. I didn't even get a chance to see what color they were. Every single one was gone. And we're talking a 100-foot span of a garden, about 20 feet deep. Every single one was gone. Even some of the leaves on the plants, every single leaf on the plant but one was gone. They did that to the hostas that were behind by the bedrooms, and they did that to a purple plant that I have that I don't know the name of. But I think it has pink flowers, and I might get flowers this year. First, let's talk about what didn't work. I went to the library after that day, and I checked out every single book that they had on deer, and I did a ton of research on the internet, watched a ton of YouTube channels, listened to podcasts and radio shows, and if it said deer protection or deer garden in it, I was watching it. And it was a year-long endeavor to figure out how I could protect myself from the deer, because I wanted to grow flowers and food, and how could I put a garden here if I was going to go to sleep and wake up and a deer was going to eat it all? I'm not feeding the wildlife. I'm feeding my family. So we're going to take you on a little tour of the garden, and while we do it, I'm going to show you what I did to protect myself. Last year, by the grace of God, I was able to keep them out of the main garden area. I did have a little bit of damage on the outside, but I expect that. I kind of give them the, hey, you can be here, but you can't be here kind of routine. And I'll show you what I've learned that works for me. Now, what works for me is not necessarily going to work for you. Every deer is different, just like every person is different. Every deer is different. Some deer don't like smelly plants, some deer don't like fuzzy plants, some deer don't like both, and one deer, if it gets desperate enough, it'll eat anything. So, what didn't work for me, and this is what didn't. Things that have a smelly smell, the sprays that have a smell. If you read the back of the package, they say reapply after every rain. I get rain 300 days a year. I get 50 to 74 inches of rain a year. I'm not going to be spending thousands of dollars on these sprays, which they seem to want to sell really good up here, and have to worry about going out and spraying literally thousands of plants every year with a stinky, gross smell that when it's in the garden, I don't even want to be in the garden. But let's re-examine that. What's that smell that's in that container? Because that might help us. And I later found out that what they use in some of those deer repellent smells is rotten eggs. Now, you and I both know we hate the smell of rotten eggs. But if you have chickens, or even if you don't and you eat eggs, save the eggshells. Don't wash them. Let them dry. Crumble them up. You and I can't smell them, but I was putting them down for slug control, because if you put a very thick layer of 2 inches of eggshells all around the borders of your vegetables and your planters. When the slugs crawl over them, they impale themselves and they die, they bleed out. And I do know that to be true because I would find them along my paths. But I did find out that the deer, I noticed they weren't going in the area where the eggshells were. And they always used to walk up to this one fence area and they'd reach over and they'd nibble 2 feet of everything that was in that area. But all of a sudden they're not nibbling there. And then I realized there's a row of eggshells there and they apparently have very good smell. So I'm going to chalk it up to those crushed eggshells and the deer didn't like. So I use that method. I have to start doing it now. The one thing you want to realize is deer, they set their pattern for the year every spring. So mama deer takes her babies out every spring and shows them the path that they're going to take to eat every day. So what you want to make sure you do is you don't get on that path. You want to make sure that when she's out looking for her path, that you're out there deterring her. If she decides she wants to go to up a certain walkway and it's close to your garden, put something there to block her from going there. Make it difficult for her. That's what I did last year, and I didn't have any damage last year. So right now, that's what I'm trying to do this year. I'm constantly looking out my windows, and I did see deer going down the driveway. That's fine, they can go down my driveway. But if they were coming over the fence or leaning over, then I would make a distraction or noise, or I would send my husband out there to go take care of it. And how is he going to take care of it? Deer do not like male pee, male urine. So, this is the one time where moms, stop telling your boys to stop peeing in the yard because you want them to. We have a perimeter around the yard, around the garden, not in the garden, but around the garden, and there's something territorial that the deer get scared if they smell the male urine. So I immediately, if I start seeing that I'm going to have a problem, I'm sending hubby out to go work in the garden. And he finds it very odd because his mother told him not to ever do it. So, women don't tell that to your little boys. So, male urine, that works. Female does not, from what I'm reading. It doesn't. Sprays don't work if you live in a rainy area. And hair from a hair salon or your dog's hair doesn't work either. Because for me, where I live in the Pacific Northwest, it rains a lot, and it waters the smell out of everything that we put down, except the eggshells. For some reason, that seemed to work. So I'm going to take you on a tour of the garden, and as we walk, I'm going to show you, or as I come to a place, I'm going to show you exactly what I do. If you see down here, I have eggshells that go. It needs to be a thick border. It needs to be 2 inches wide and a solid border. It can't just be scattered like this. This is last year's. But it did go all the way down. And yeah, I think it's ugly. I mean, I think it's really ugly. But it did the trick. So let's go up a little bit more. Deer ate everything that was on the top of this this planter. It's one big, huge planter. And they ate all the flowers to all the daylilies. And all the other flowers that are in there. Those are all flowers. They're actually all going to be moved. The daylilies, the irises, and everything. And they were ruthless. They took it all. And they actually took, at the very front of the garden too, they actually ate everything that was over there. Okay, so that's the main part of the damage. That was the first part of the damage. You'll notice, as we go back, I have a fence right here. That fence is actually there to keep deer from coming down the stairs and crossing into the planter bed. Because this area right here that we have, this is the main garden area. And it's actually all fenced in, with the exception of the strawberry bed that I showed you a minute ago. It's actually all fenced in and I'll go up and show you how it's done, even all the way over to there. So let's go up the stairs and I'll start showing you some more deer protection. Now we're up at the top of the garden area, and what we have is we're at the top of the stairs, and we have the fence that comes down, and it's kind of on the slope. It goes through the terracing that I did, but that's going to keep a deer from jumping over. My weak spot that I have is right here, because the way deer jump, they can jump height, but they can't jump distance. So they can spring up in the air to about 8 feet and possibly 9 feet, but they can't jump height and distance. So my weak spot right here is this gate area, and it is a gate, and it opens up, and it's what we use to go to it's our entrance to the garden. So I have garden beds shoved all the way up at the front of the fences. There's a garden bed touching every part of a fence, and the paths are small and skinny. In fact, I can barely get a wheelbarrow through the middle path here, and all the other beds are close enough that a person can walk through, but I can't get a wheelbarrow through. And I did that on purpose because I didn't want a deer getting through. Now, what's the pinwheel doing? Because we all see this pinwheel over here, and that is something that I discovered from talking to a friend. Apparently, you can put pinwheels in the ground, and their vibration scares the moles and the voles in the ground. Oh, great idea. Well, if the vibration scares the moles, maybe it would scare the deer away. And since we have winds coming off of the bay pretty much constantly, except for right now because I'm filming, it's a slight wind, but not enough to turn it. Because we have winds coming off so much, it moves quite often. And the deer, yeah, they're scared of it, because I had snow peas growing all along this fence, covered from here up to there. And it was growing over and everything. So I stuck a pinwheel in here that a girlfriend of mine got from the dollar store. So I have a whole stack and supply of them in the shop. And when I put because I trellised the peas, snap peas up here, I put this in here, and it pretty much turned all summer, and I didn't have any deer issue. They didn't even try to eat one pea, but I think they're actually scared to death of me. So this is an area where the deer like to go. If you see, I have a big embankment that's up here, and they actually come down there, so they can climb up there. You see their little hoof prints, but they're stuck with a fence that, yeah, they can jump over. But remember, they don't have peripheral vision, and they don't like to get stuck. So if you crowd an area really tight with things, and you keep a barrier 4 to 3 feet close, 3 to 4 feet away, they won't be able to see the distance of it, and they'll think they're going to get stuck, so they won't want to go through. Hi, babe. Hi, Dad. So wherever I have a fence, oh, I need to zip tie that. Wherever I have a fence, I have some sort of a barrier, and right now the barrier is my mound. I'm moving that thing by wheelbarrow, if you can believe it. So this is probably a really good time to talk to you about VCR tape. What could you do with VCR tape? Because none of us have VCRs anymore, but we can probably still find VCR tape. I took some VCR tape away. I read on the internet by a guy that put a fence up, and all he did was string VCR tape from T-post to T-post. I think it was a foot. He strung it a foot apart all the way up. And he said he did that for 10 years and deer didn't go anywhere near it. Well, I tried doing that, and the wind here is so horrible that it just blew and broke in the wind. We get 50, 60-mile-an-hour winds, hurricane force winds. That's nothing for us. But I did notice that wherever the tape was flapping in the wind, that the deer didn't go near the tape, and the birds didn't go near it either, because I had some tape tied in some trees, you know, like fruit trees, and the birds didn't go near the fruit trees, and they didn't go to the strawberry plants that were below it. But before I had put the tape up, I was fighting them with the strawberries. So I now have a stock of VCR tape, and we use VCR tape. In fact, I will come out and be installing the tape. I don't necessarily like it because when you're sitting in the living room and the sun comes out, it can blind you through the windows, but you know, at least I know what it is. It's not somebody flashing a flashlight to me in the middle of day. So we have lots of stuff inside the fence that keeps them scared to go in, that they might get stuck. And then we have kind of like a double fence structure. So I have the main fence along with something 3 to 4 feet away. I can still get a wheelbarrow through, but something 3 to 4 feet away where like a fence or a double fence, where they might get stuck or they won't know. Because remember, they can jump height, but they can't jump height and distance. And that was actually something that I learned when I moved here from a guy. These plants right here on the outside of the fence, they love them. They have orange flowers, and they are my sucker plants, I guess you'd say. They also like the trees. They're fruitless apple trees or something, but they're beautiful, but I've never gotten a bloom because the deer come and eat them. But it tells me that I have a deer problem. So when I see nibbling on the plant, that's when I go to hubby and say, hubby, I need a perimeter check, and he comes out and takes care of the perimeter for me. And this is one area where we need the perimeter. So this is an area that if they want to, they could really get in. I got a 4-foot fence. I got a lot of area that they can jump in. I've been cutting this hill back, and every time I cut more of the hill off, it just weakens my deer protection, because I think I took 5-6 feet of it last summer. So now I have a weak area where they could jump over. So what I did was I put a ladder, and it was right up about 3 feet away from the fence, but the wind came and kind of moved it for me. So I have to move that again. But I always put an obstruction or a device or something to fool them. And it's probably just fooling myself, but we've been good so far, praise God. So, cramped spaces, spin wheels, VCR tape, DVD reflectors. They don't like those either. And let's take you to the little road to Hana. Hold on one second, we'll be right back. Most of you, if you've been with me enough, watching some of the channels or on the Facebook page, you've seen me struggling with the little road to Hana. Because the little road to Hana was a windy, turny, twisty little road. It was about this wide. It was only wide enough for me to get a wheelbarrow, and there was about 2 areas in the road that if I didn't have the wheels perfectly on the little path, the wheelbarrow would flip over and go down the cliff. It happened many times. It's just part of living here. But this is how I fixed it. Smelly plants. Before I had this area fenced in, I did this retaining wall out of pallets. We'll do another video on pallets. But what I did was I planted smelly plants, because I'm hearing on the internet and through some radio shows, they don't like things that smell and they don't like fuzzy things. So planted smelly plants all the way down this road, and this is actually where the herb garden is. So the whole way that you go down the little road, you have onions and the herb garden. And they actually didn't touch it. So this is also a really good time to stop and talk about the height and distance. Yes, they can jump height. That is a 4-foot fence. But they can't jump height and distance. And in order to jump up here, they would be standing about 3 feet below. So that 4-foot fence is now about a 7-foot fence. And because they're down farther, they would have to jump some distance to get over it. So, height and distance plus my double fence. When you get down here, this wall that's right down there, this wall acts as a double fence. So I have about a 3-foot wide path with a fence on one side, a cliff down, and a wall about 3 feet in. They're going to get confused, and they haven't breached it yet. The only problem is I need to remove this year because I need to plant planters down there. And if you notice, if you can hear it, I'm a little nervous about removing the fence because so far it has worked wonderfully. But I have to remember, I have other things in the property. I have a 6-foot fence out there already. They would have to, in order to get to this area, they would have to jump 1, 2, 3 fences to get here. Anywhere from 1 to 3. So, and let's go here now. If you see this area, they're not going to want to get in that area, hopefully. I say that hopefully, because it is so crammed with stuff, the planters. And this is where usually the tomatoes and things that need to be warmed in the evening, that's where they go to live. So let's go down and look at the plants. And we are just about done. Hold on. This right here is the plant that 2 years ago they ate every single thing but one leaf off of it. And I was just redoing the bed that it was in, so I dug it up and put it here just to protect it so I can transplant it somewhere else. But whatever this is, it loves, loves, loves. So there you go. That's about it for talking about the deer. It seems to work for me. You can take bits and pieces of it and do with it what you want, but so far for me it seems to work. If you have any questions or any suggestions, let me know. Like I said, spring is the time you want to get your butt out there and you want to be vigilant, looking out your windows, making sure the deer aren't there, looking for the footprints, looking for the little chewed tops. Okay, a spider. It's spider season too. They're okay to be in the garden, but not the deer. But you do want to make sure that you, in the Pacific Northwest, you don't chase the deer, because that's considered harassing wildlife. Don't ask me how I know. I do not do it. Don't ask me how I know. But you don't want to chase the deer. You especially don't want to chase them with a stick, because your husband will kindly remind you, you don't want to do that. Anyways, I hope you've had a, I know this has been long, and I might put it in 2 sections for us, but I hope you enjoyed it. And go out there and do one thing, just one thing in your garden, and dig in the dirt if you can. And if you have snow still, I am so sorry. I'm lucky if I can get the sun, and I'll take whatever I can get. You guys have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, that was really interesting. To me, it was interesting. I'm looking at this video and I'm like, that does not even remotely look like my land right now. I mean, I don't have those garden beds anymore. I don't have the walls or the terraces anymore. I have the brick walls, but I have a lot more brick walls. This was probably 2011 when I started terracing every part of the garden. And right now, ironically, I am ripping all of those terraces out. I think I only have 2 of the 5 sections left to do. A lot of those plants have grown so huge, and I have just moved many of them. Partly because this is where the house build is going. This is the garden that the house is in, and I had to move everything. But what in the deer, because we'll talk about gardening in other videos, but what has helped me with the deer, and what do I do now? Because I don't have a deer issue. Well, I did this year because I had to remove it. But what is it that helped with the deer? Fencing. I devised a 9-foot fence, and I will totally be doing a video on that at some point in time, making a note to myself, deer fencing. That was very inexpensive, and I am currently, right now, snaking it through the forest. So I will have a perimeter fence outside between the trees and in the forest that is 9 feet tall that will keep the deer and hopefully some of the other predators out. And that is the only thing that has helped. All the smelly things washed away in the rain, and pretty much everything else the deer got used to. And the plants, they just moved around. So yes, small confined spaces still worked, but as I was moving things and as things were evolving in the garden, I just reverted to doing a specialized fencing that I figured out, and it works wonderfully. So when you're planning your garden and you're planting your garden on your homestead, fencing. And I became a master gardener a couple years ago, and what was the one thing that we were telling people when they called talking about deer? Fencing. Fencing is the only thing that is going to keep deer out. So if you want a garden and you don't want to have to worry about the deer eating your garden, fencing, fencing, fencing. And I know most of the people that live and move out into the country do not want fencing. They want to live in the free and the open and the wide space, and I know some of my neighbors would prefer that. But for me and my garden and my husband, we like to eat fencing. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, smash it 2020 style. You guys have a great day out there. And wow, that hair. Seriously? That was some awful hair. This, I would like to tell you, was before the hairdresser that I found in Salem. Now you know why I go to Salem to get my hair done. Bye, you guys. Talk to you later.